When life was predictable and things were normal, it was not that important to appreciate this very key spiritual law. But if there's one thing that is crystal clear, is that life, as we always knew it, has changed forever. And so, it is very important that we not only understand this spiritual law completely, but in fact, it is even more important that we know how to apply it to our current situation. So that if we don't have any money worries, we ensure that things remain like that, and that indeed we secure our future. So that even if we are very broke at the moment, we are very hard up for cash, we'll be able to change our situation immediately. Trust me, there's nothing as powerful as a spiritual law. Now, there's some spiritual laws that people don't know, and they suffer because they don't know them. But there's some spiritual laws everybody knows, and they still suffer because they don't fully grasp and understand them. The spiritual law we're going to talk about in this video is one that everybody knows, but very, very few really understand it. And it is the spiritual law of the seed. If you plant a seed, it will grow. And I guess people don't understand this spiritual law because most of us hate farming. It is associated with poor people. At least here in Africa, people who have no other option but to be in the rural areas and to plant seeds. Poor rural folk. But what many fail to realize is that it applies to virtually every area of our lives, and especially our finances. Rural folk know that if you harvest and eat all your seed and don't leave any for planting next season, you'll end up in trouble. We'll end up with nothing to plant and no harvest. But this spiritual law also applies to people employed who have nothing to do with farming. Because if you spend all your salary and you don't plant a seed, you don't invest, you don't save, at some point you'll end up in trouble the day you lose your job, which is a trouble that many of us are in right now as a result of the pandemic. Anyway, let us apply this spiritual law to the current situation facing all of us right now. And let us start with the people who have no money worries. And let's take an example that will apply to many of them. You planted a seed a long time ago, or your parents did, or your spouse, and now you're enjoying the fruits. You have a house, real estate. You collect rent every month. And the pandemic has affected rents. They've gone down, and they're continuing to go down. But at least you have property. It's fully paid for. So you collect rent. Maybe you're collecting 100,000 before. Now you're collecting only 80,000. But at least you're collecting some money. Now you might not be aware of this, but your situation is not sustainable. We know that the full effects of the pandemic have not yet unfolded. So in all likelihood, the money you collect from your rental property will continue to go down consistently, because more and more people will not have money. And so I assure you that that day is coming when there will be nobody able to pay you rental income that will enable you to survive, to maintain your lifestyle, to live. That day is coming. And so I strongly recommend that you take some of your seed right now, some of your rental income, and invest it somewhere else. Plant it somewhere else. Or let us take another situation. You have a very solid, reliable job. You're employed. You earn a good income. And you're sure your job will be there for the next 100 years. Okay, I exaggerate. But the truth is, you fool yourself. It's not a solid source of income. Anything can happen tomorrow. And so I recommend you too get some seed and plant it somewhere else. Invest somewhere else. And I'll tell you exactly what to do in a moment, using this spiritual law of the seed. Okay, let's take the other situation. You're broke. You lost your job or your source of income as a result of the pandemic. Not only do you have no money, but you're also heavily in debt. You owe a lot of people a lot of money. Now, the good news is that your situation is not new. Since the beginning of time, many people have been in debt and without any money, and they have reversed their situation using the principle of the seed. So, what should you do? I'm going to give you a few key principles linked to the spiritual law of the seed, planting and harvesting, that you can apply going forward to secure your future in these very uncertain times. And these principles are the forgotten wisdom of planting seeds. And these principles were forgotten because things got so good. The basic initial principles were forgotten, cast aside as irrelevant, old-fashioned, overtaken by the times. But now you can use them to revolutionize your life and prepare to get totally amazed. Now, the first thing about planting seed is that they never used to plant all the seed. Due to various factors, they planted a little at a time. Now, let us apply this immediately to our situation today. You want to start a business. You want to start an income-generating project. And what you're thinking is that you need a huge amount of money. You immediately think about a loan from the bank or selling one of your vehicles. And it is for this same reason that many people are reluctant to go into business in the first place. Too risky. Well, there is also risk in farming, in planting a seed. And so if you have this new shamba, this new farm, you will be crazy to plant everything. And so in the same way, don't start a business. Instead, do a single transaction first. And after that, do another one and another. And after a few successful transactions, each one being more successful than the other, then you can sit down and start a business. And by that time you'll realize you will already have the finances to launch your business from profits that have come from your transactions. Now, don't worry, we'll go into details about that later. But for now, let us also look at something else. In most instances, when the first seeds are planted, something goes terribly wrong. The environment is not good for that particular crop in that area. You didn't know that. But now, after planting a few seeds, you do. Yeah, you have not lost much because you didn't plant everything. And so you quickly plant another variety, another crop, or another variety of the same crop, and you wait for the results. In the same way, your first transaction in your business may fail, will most probably have all kinds of problems. Yeah, it may not work out. So you try another kind of transaction until you arrive at one that works. I have never believed in feasibility studies because I know many people who have done very major feasibility studies that have ended up failing. I believe instead in the transaction. And I know the circumstances now are such that you'll be forced to agree with me because there's no money to do feasibility studies and large investments. And even if you have the money, the environment is not conducive to doing that. The second major principle linked to the spiritual law of the seed is that you could plant and successfully harvest. And after you have been able to put aside what you'll consume yourself, you now have the challenge of selling your farm produce. Trust me, that's a huge challenge, as many farmers will tell you. And farmers will also tell you, even those in the rural areas, that the only farm produce you'll sell for a good profit is farm produce that is desperately needed. Yeah, and now we live in desperate times. So whatever you're selling in that business you want to start, in that transaction you're doing, you must look for desperate customers. And it is not too difficult to find people who are desperate to buy. I'm going to give you quite a number of examples in another video I'm going to refer you to. Practical real life examples. It is very important that you appreciate the fact that the season we are in is such that if you cannot find desperate customers to sell to, your business will not succeed. Now I break down all this in more examples, real life examples, practical examples, as well as giving you solid, brilliant money generating ideas. Yeah, and you'll be able to find these in the special playlist of videos that I've done, which I've prepared for you. Yeah, and you can see a link to those videos at the top of your screens right now. Yeah, click on it and go to those videos. You'll also see a link to the playlist in the description area below this video on YouTube. You will learn a lot, trust me. Your eyes will be opened and you will never see things the same ever again. Go for it and prosper in these hard, desperate times. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.